In 1946, the San Francisco 49ers became the first ever professional sports team in San Francisco. They won 4 Super Bowls in the 1980s and another in 1994, but then spent the 2000s missing the playoffs for 8 straight years, and since 2012, they've appeared in and lost 3 Super Bowls. So what's it like to root for one of the NFL's all-time great dynasties that turns into a regular frustrating team even though no one feels bad for you when they lose? Let's find out. I'm Dan Hopper. This is Thrill of Defeat. My first guest today is Vince Mancini. He used to write for Film Drunk, the Uprock site back in the aughts and 2010s, currently co-host of the Frotcast, and he still writes the content report on Substack. That's Vince Mancini at substack.com. Vince Mancini, thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. It was actually, Film Drunk was pre-Uprocks as part of the Gorilla Mask network, the Fat Penguin network of blogs that started with Gorilla Mask. If you really want to go back to the content mine days,
I didn't know
That's
Gorilla Mask.
I haven't heard in a long time.
I didn't know Gorilla Mask had its own content. I thought they only linked out.
They did. Well, it was called the Fat Penguin Network, and it was it was what would Tyler Durden do with leather.
Yes.
And then I met Matt Ufford online and started Film Drunk for Fat Penguin with Ryan Perry, who was the owner and manager of the network at that point.
Man, this is niche internet history that is extremely interesting to me and probably none of our listeners. This is how non-sports fans feel when I'm talking about sports now. I kind of get it. And our other guest today is Vince's co-host on the Frotcast. It's Brendan Darby. Brendan, thanks so much for being here.
Hello.
Brendan also was on the 49ers in preseason. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I played football for the team. It was called the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, sorry. Let's go back to the beginning. There used to be
100 yards.
The sport of football.
There's segments of 10 yards, which a team must gain. Or you don't need to start that far back, Brendan. Yeah, sorry.
So it's kind of complicated in the sense that I played for them, but I also grew up a huge fan. So I've had a lot of people say oh, well, yeah, of course you're a Niners fan because you played for them. And it's no, that's not how it works at all. Because I also played for the Ravens, and I don't really give a shit about the Ravens. And in fact, I know a lot of people. Yeah, I know a lot of people who have a burning hatred for the teams that they played for any number of reasons. So it's if you ask someone who actually played for the team, it can get complicated because of the way, depending on the way things ended, depending on what happened while you were there. I mean, did you get talked into playing while you were hurt and then screwed out of a bunch of injury money? These are all
did they try to give you a Toradol shot in your back and accidentally puncture your lung?
Right. Yeah, like Greg Clark, RIP. Yeah, so those are all the kind of things that can happen, and so and some people feel free to laugh if you want to, but for a lot of folks, it can be a traumatic experience because they treat you like shit. Let's not mix words here. Everything you see about football in the movies and shit, a lot of it's true, right? And you get treated like cattle. Beginning with the combine where you're walking around in your compression shorts and nothing else. So, it can be complicated. Now, that said, for me, this was a dream I'd had since I was a kid. And I knew that I wasn't going to suddenly go from a guy who wasn't drafted and had already been cut from the Ravens to being a 10-time Pro Bowler and, having a news conference where I cry while explaining my decision to retire. Right. I kind of knew that I was going to leave unceremoniously with my health as a bonus, but not guaranteed. So yeah, sorry, that was a long introduction, but yeah, kind of all the above, right? It was cool to play for this team that I grew up cheering for and dreamed about playing for. And reality also is kind of a bitch when it slaps you in the face the way it did. So yeah, it was cool. All those things, everything. The cornucopia, the rainbow of human emotion.
Yeah, you took us through the entire rainbow in 45 seconds at the beginning of the podcast. I'm damn.
Yes.
It's just, I'll just sign
time
off
to go
now.
home.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Should I have saved that for the end?
But no, that's incredible. I feel like you're the first guest I've had who's actually played on a sports team, and also doubly incredible because I feel like just by virtue of playing okay beer league hockey. In my head, I'm like, I feel like I'm more athletic than like 99% of podcasters, but I'm like, oh shit, podcaster could definitely kick my ass. Damn it.
It's a low bar.
I know. That's why I like this pool of, in terms of like feeling athletic, the podcasting pool. But I'm like, oh God, this guy's actually the real deal. Shit.
I was going to say, like, I would, if there was like a podcaster kumite, like I'd be willing to bet on myself, but then there's probably lots of MMA, and then there's also so many athletes now. I'm in my 40s, right? So there's probably a lot of guys who like just retired from the NFL or from MMA or whatever who could just absolutely wash me. So
yeah, but you're beating the shit out of like Harry and Meghan or whatever. So
yeah, that's right.
Whoever else, whatever like weird vanity podcast.
Gwyneth Paltrow's going the fuck down.
You just tackle her randomly. Like she's like, "What?" You're like, "Oh, I forgot to inform you the kumite thing that we're doing." Kumite. Never mind. I'll have my lawyer explain it. So I guess let's start at the beginning. Where did you guys grow up, and how did you both become fans of the San Francisco 49ers?
I grew up in Fresno County, which is in the Central California. As a region, it's sort of half split between all of the other different California teams. Like some people usually you either choose like your SoCal teams or your NorCal teams, and then you have your smattering of like annoying Cowboys fans. But like my grandfather, yeah, exactly, yeah. My grandfather grew up in San Francisco, so that was sort of probably where that came from. So yeah, like I've been in the 49ers jersey since before kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Did the Niners being good in the 80s kind of seal it for you? Because I had a friend in college who grew up in the Bay Area, and he was an Oakland A's fan and a San Francisco 49ers fan, because those were the two teams that were really good at the time, and then he just kept them from then on.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like I feel like being a sports fan is sort of like asking someone whether they had a good childhood, because it's like, I don't know, I have this very like halcyon experience, like being a fan of the 49ers and like when you're alive in the 80s, like it was the coolest, like most easy team to be a fan of. Like from the time that I understood like what football was and like could cheer for it, it was like I was cheering for Joe Montana and like Jerry Rice. I don't think you could have like a better fan experience like as a young kid. And then, I've infected my own children with my fandom, and I feel like seeing it through them, I realized like, oh, like that was just sort of a special thing that you got to experience as a 49er fan. And like most teams, being a fan of most any team, like you don't get to see your team as the good guys who win in the end, like as happened for us in the 80s a lot.
Yeah, we've had episodes in the past. I talked to, Falcons fans, Toronto Maple Leafs fans, people who are like, I would kill to see one title in my lifetime. And then to see 5 actually in your life, before you're, 20 is like, it's incredible to have like this glory period. Yeah.
I always wonder what that's, just like to have this sense that like, oh, you cheer for the good guys and the good guys win. Like, I don't know, it must give you some sort of false optimism or something. Because just like watching it change now for my kids, where like being a 49er fan now is kind of like being like a Buffalo Bills fan in like 93 or something at this point. Like they don't have that experience of like expecting something good to happen and then it happens.
Yeah. Brendan, where did you grow up, and what, did you have a similar experience of like, oh my God, this team I picked as a child is the best team, one of the best teams of all time?
Yeah. So Vince and I were both born in the early 80s. And so that was they were the team of the 80s. Now, also what that means is, I have no recollection of the first and second Super Bowls. I have a very vague memory of the second one against the Bengals, where they Montana to Taylor at the end of the game. So it is interesting because it's not as if I literally don't remember a couple of them. And then also probably like a little young to really, so when they do, Montana to Taylor and beat the Bengals and then blow out Elway and the Broncos, it was like, oh, this is just what happens every year. We just do it every year. So because it was right around that age is where you're like old enough to really understand, what's going on. And so, it was sort of an interesting time. To answer your question, I grew up in Marin County, which is the first county north of San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge connects San Francisco to Marin County. So grew up going to the games since I was really young. Fun fact, I came into a Niners family for sure. My grandfather had season tickets at Kezar Stadium and then transferred those over to Candlestick. And the fun fact that our seats were so fucking good that I remember when I was playing for the team, my parents just used the tickets that we had. And then I had, I don't know, I think 4 or 6 comp tickets to give to my friends. And I'm like looking up before the game to see where everybody is. And I see my parents and I can like see them clearly, like, hey, and then like takes me forever. Then finally I hear my friends like hollering my name and they're like 25 rows behind my parents. So they had much better tickets than the guys at the bottom of the roster got. But I mean, I grew up, I remember seeing Ken Norton Sr. I remember seeing Jim Mora Sr., Mr. Playoffs. I remember seeing Jennifer Montana. So, I really came into like a hardcore Niners family. So it was sort of, I don't remember ever having it like, this is the team you have to cheer for. Like, I remember also thinking the Bears were really cool. And I think I just sort of liked their uniforms or whatever, but it was just kind of like understood. And then, once you go to the games, then it's really easy for, okay, well, this is my team. Like, this is what I like. So yeah, it's tough when you start out and you're cheering for this great team. And then you have to learn pretty quickly, like, we don't win the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah, I have weirdly vivid memories of that Montana to Taylor. I feel like that's probably my first and most formative like sports memory of like, I remember the house I was at watching the Super Bowl and thinking like, the 49ers might not actually win this one. And then it was, it was like the movie ending with, I forget how many seconds left were on the clock when he, hit Taylor. Yeah. So that was like the formative moment of probably my first sports memory. So like when that's like your first core memory, there really is nowhere to go but downhill after that.
No, it's true. Yeah. I mean, you kind of touched on this, but like I assume the 3rd and 4th Super Bowls, and then they won again with Steve Young in 94. When you're that young, do you have any like perspective of, how rare something like that is? Most fandoms never experience like a glory period like that ever, or they're happy to have one title. Do the people around you or the reactions, like, did that give you any like perspective on how incredible this was? Or was this kind of just like, hey, cool, Super Bowl, and only now looking back, you realize it?
I mean, I don't think it was ever external. I mean, because it would have just been the same effect as, hey, one day you're going to appreciate this, like the piece of advice that no one has ever heeded ever. So it wasn't so much about other people saying like, hey, this is really special, you got to appreciate it. But really it was more by the time we won in 94, the Steve Young Super Bowl win, because I mean, talk about spoiled fans. I mean, like, we're the team of the 80s, win after the 89 season. And then for the next several seasons, I mean, we were right in there. We lost to the Giants the year the Giants won. They beat the Bills. We barely lost them. I think it was like 12-9. Like, it was some god awful score, in the NFC Championship. So really close to going back to a 3rd Super Bowl. And then pretty much every year between then and the next Super Bowl, we were in it. The problem was the Cowboys were just a little bit better. And so anyway, all that is to say, I remember how bad it stung when we were losing to the Cowboys in the playoffs, and that fucking sucked, And so it was nice to like feel that kind of loss. And then I could, even at the age of however old I was, 13, 14, obviously now I think, what, I was just a little kid, but I felt like, I had enough. I'd seen enough of the bad shit to be able to like appreciate the good thing. And even now I still think that's true. Like because I remember how bad it sucked. I remember I was at the game when we lost to the Packers in the playoffs, when the Packers beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? Like, I was at that game and it fucking sucked. I was at one of the games that we lost the Cowboys in that era. I was at one of the games where we beat the Cowboys and it was like ecstatic, So even at 14, I mean, I think we're all old enough to be able to at least have the perspective, unless, I don't know, you're a fucking Patriots fan or something, like what that's like. So
I think starting off on the high is where it was unique because, I remember that the Montana to Taylor Super Bowl, like from then on, it was sort of the expectation was like, we're the best team, we're going to win. And then if they didn't, it was usually because like, we had an injury or this fluke happened or, this thing happened. We should have won, but X happened. And I tend to think like that is kind of what sports fandom is like for everybody, where you're just like, we had it. but then you make excuses for why your team is not winning, and so there's you're doing that mental gymnastics always. And so I think the maybe the expectation of winning was more reasonable back then, but you're doing the exact same sort of rationalizing that every sports fan, I feel like, learns how to do early and often.
Yeah, I mean, it does not take much, even when your team is successful, to kind of just recalibrate your fandom bar and then still get mad when they don't win. It's like you'd like to think like, oh, well, we won a bunch of Super Bowls, so I'll take everything in stride and I'm fine till, for 30 years or whatever. But, that's not how fandom works. It's not how the human brain works. It's still mad. Still pissed off when they lose.
It's a good point that you brought up, though, because when you talk about like you talked about the Browns, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I think even if I were a lifelong Browns fan, if we made it to the Super Bowl and we got really close to winning and we didn't win, I would just be fucking devastated.
Of
like,
course.
I don't necessarily believe people when they say, oh, what I wouldn't give to just go to a Super Bowl. Like, ask a fucking Bills fan, right? Like,
oh yeah. No, for sure.
Like, sorry. And obviously now as Niners fans, like, we've seen the other side of that, because for a long time it was like, wow, Niners are 5-0 in the Super Bowl. They're a special franchise. They've got, they've got that special thing that prevents them from losing in the Super Bowl.
Even when it's a completely different group of humans, 25 years later, they have the jersey.
This laundry
color.
is just secretly blessed.
My favorite like historical hinge point / conspiracy theory is that like the United States entered our bad period when the Bills lost the 4th Super Bowl, because it was like it's tangentially responsible for like Timothy McVeigh. I forget how much he was a big Bills fan, and he bet like his life savings on that 4th Super Bowl, because he's like, there's no way they're going to lose 4 Super Bowls in a row. And then they lost, and he did like the Oklahoma City bombing. And then like that led to this negative period. And then like Trump was trying to buy the Buffalo Bills around the same time. And like if they would have let him buy an NFL team instead of getting hosed, like we wouldn't have any of the current situation. Like so many bad things would not have happened if the Bills had won that 4th Super Bowl.
Bills are already pissed off just from regular losing, and you're like, well, actually, you also might have unraveled society. And they're like, dude, we're mad enough. Like the fucking field goal in the first one, I'm still pissed off. But so the 49ers, they win 4 Super Bowls with Joe Montana in the 80s. They then trade Joe Montana. Do you guys remember the Joe Montana trade and your reaction to it? Because they had Steve Young on the team. Montana kept getting hurt. Young was playing really well, and they couldn't keep both. And so they trade Joe Montana, Hall of Famer.
Definitely do you remember it being like a heartbreaking betrayal for sure. Not from Joe Montana, but like the team not keeping him. Like I definitely remember taking that to heart.
Yeah, same. I think I was probably a little bit too young to be able to be like, well, Steve Young gives them a dynamic presence in the, with his legs that Montana, definitely like a little bit too young to break it down that way. It was just like Montana was the hero. Like that guy was just, he was the hero. And so, to have him no longer be the guy. Yeah. I mean, that sucked. And like, we understood that Steve Young was a really good quarterback, but it's like still, it's and again at that age, it's like, what do you mean mommy and daddy aren't going to be living together anymore?
Steve Young finally gets the Super Bowl in '94. They crush the Chargers. I remember that year specifically because the Chargers beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh in the AFC title game. The Steelers had the ball inside the 10 and threw 4 incomplete passes and lost to the Chargers, who then got
who would do. I can't. Oh my God, that happened. I can't believe that happened to you. Never. We're better than that. That could never happen to me or the team that I cheer for.
That year in particular, even being a fan of them, it felt unfair because it was like the 49ers were good from like 80 through like 98 or whatever, like for a long time. But like the 94 in particular was like, they got Deion Sanders and they had Ricky Waters. Like they had a team that just felt stacked from top to bottom. And it felt,
you still had Rice. Rice was still like in his prime, basically. Rice had like a 12-year prime, which is insane. Yeah. I mean, you had Brent Jones at tight end. I mean, he was amazing. You had William Floyd, who was a really good pass catching fullback. You had a crazy defense. Remember, you had like Ricky Jackson. You had Charles Haley.
Charles Haley.
Mean, it was just
famous for.
Wait. No, Charles Haley was not on that team.
Oh no, I think he was probably on the Cowboys.
He was on the Cowboys by then. Sorry, yes, he was.
Famous for
Haley,
what?
Famous for.
You might as well say it, Vince.
Yeah, famous for jacking off in the showers to climax while telling
in the meeting rooms
while telling teammates he was thinking of their wives, which is pretty wild. I don't think you can get.
Is that a team bonding thing, a motivational thing, a hazing thing?
I think when you're good, like they forgive the fact that you're like a completely insane person.
Yeah. Well, our Mets podcast, we were talking about David Cohn was admitted to jacking off in the bullpen during games when he was a Met. I guess it's a common theme.
I sort of, not that I get it, but like jacking off because you needed to jack off is one thing, but like to do it like performatively and like at people, it feels like that's one I haven't heard outside of Charles Haley.
I would agree that is different. I agree. I'll put my opinion on record. I don't care who hears me say it.
Anyway, I just wanted to finish the point because you could argue that
talking
the
about
80s,
jacking off.
He always got to finish.
Yeah.
You could make the argument about the 80s 49ers that like, the NFL hadn't quite seen the West Coast offense yet. There was a really skillfully assembled roster that was both scouted with superstars, but also with lots of contributors, and all that kind of stuff. The 94 Niners, they were just insane. They were just so fucking good. I mean, you had, you could just go through position by position. The corners were Eric Davis and Dion. Eric Davis was an all-pro in his own right. We all know about Dion. The safeties were Merton Hanks, who's like one of the best coverage-free safeties ever, and Tim McDonald, who is one of the best like run-stopping strong safeties ever, and was also very good coverage. Yeah, the ends were it was Ricky Jackson and I'm drawing a blank. Linebackers, you had Lee Woodall and Gary Plummer. I mean, those guys were both Pro Bowlers, if not all pros. You had a great offensive line, Bart Oates, who was on a lot of those really good Giants teams. You had Harris Barton. And then, of course, you have like Steve Young, Ricky Waters, William Floyd. You have Jerry Rice. You have J.J. Stokes. Yeah.
Who could forget J.J. Stokes?
Who could forget J.J. Stokes?
Well, they somehow contained the great Stan Humphries and the Chargers.
Yeah.
Stupid.
But anyway, like, I guess you can't overstate how insanely stacked that 94 Niners team was. I mean, that was just amazing. And I remember I went to a few games that year and it was so fun. They just fucking steamrolled people.
It reminds me almost a little of the Edmonton Oilers after they trade Wayne Gretzky and then they win a cup without him with this loaded team, with Sans Gretzky. It feels similar. I know Gretzky was closer to his prime when they traded him. Joe Montana was 37, but it's like you trade one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, and then win again with another all-time great quarterback and this all-star team. It's crazy.
Right.
What a blessed early start to the fandom. So what is this is funny. There's a podcast about like the pain of sports fandom, and we've only talked about happy stuff so far. So we got to get to the
that's the background of the pain.
Is
thinking that like that's possible and is always going to happen to you.
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of my question then is like, what is the residual effect of like being a fan and then having your experience be you either win the Super Bowl or come really close basically every year with this historic franchise to then kind of becoming, mid to late 90s. They're still pretty good, but they kind of become like a regular football team at that point. How is both your personal fandom and also like what was it like? What was 49ers fandom like? Kind of being on such a high and then going to like now you have to root for a regular team. Like, how do you adjust to that?
I think maybe like part of that is I feel like it dovetailed really easily with the times where I feel like the early aughts was just bad. Like I remember those War on Terror years, just it being bad. Like so much of pop culture was just like alienating and dark and nihilistic, and so it kind of felt of a piece of that where it's like, oh yeah, I guess nothing good happens.
Yeah, we're watching fucking Kiefer Sutherland torture innocent people in prime time Like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that really just sets the whole tone.
No, flip on the 49ers. Oh God! Like just torture like continues.
Yeah, I mean, if you
he's got someone's wife hooked up to a car battery.
Yeah, like I feel like if you look at any pop culture from like 2000 to 2009, like it all felt pretty dark. Just that was sort of like the era that produced Idiocracy, where all of the ads were just like the most bellicose. Like everything, like they were selling burgers to you in that just aggressive, like meat-headed sort of everything was like that. And
Axe body spray. There's like an orgasm sound when you press the thing, and there's like the 3D. There's like the
girls
3D
gone
Doritos
wild.
and it's like
I remember the original Axe commercials were literally like he'd spray it on and go out in public, and there's just like women like dogpiling him. Like
they would get like sucked
jumping
onto
on him.
you. And then it was like Axe body spray, and he like sprays it, and there's like an orgasm sound as you spray the thing. Yeah.
They still make that stuff, and kids still use it, which is wild.
Hey, cool. Did they rebrand it like for the times? Is it like
I don't know. I mean, they don't have commercials anymore, so it's hard to say like how it's branded. But I know like I have a 12-year-old stepson, and I like there's Axe is still around. Kids are still using that
quickly. Like actually, the CEO is a woman. It's a girl boss company, and then like the last 2 years, they're like, oh, actually, we're racist now. Like they just like really quickly try to like pivot to like the times. So late 90s, they're still pretty good, making the playoffs, pretty often, but not getting back to the Super Bowl. But then, like you said, 2003 to 2010, they missed the playoffs every single season. This is, they're one of the worst teams in football for almost a full decade. They go through 3 coaches plus an interim coach, and they land the first overall pick, which becomes Alex Smith.
Which could have been Aaron Rodgers, but no.
Yes, it was the year Aaron Rodgers, not only doesn't get drafted first overall, he falls all the way to 24th, despite going to Cal and being, right there in the Bay Area. What stands out to you the most from this period when you look back on it? Like, how did you feel at the time and, the Alex Smith pick? And did you have any hope for the future, or was this like a rock bottom for your fandom?
No, man, I was looking around in the huddle going, we're going to fucking suck.
I definitely remember that like being the era where you would find any dumb thing to hold on to and think it would mean something like, oh yeah, Mike Nolan is wearing suits back to the sidelines. Maybe that'll be good. Or then like, they'd start like a backup. Like I remember they started Troy Smith and he had like 2 amazing games and it was like, oh man, maybe we're back. And then no. So it was always there like
was a few like next hope type of guys. There was JT O'Sullivan, remember, like he played really well, and there was like Sean Hill, and it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe this guy's kind of got it, like,
yeah. It was like a series of false hopes that just cratered comically fast. And then there was like a lovable loser period. I feel like Jim Tomsula was like the lovable loser era. Like Jim Tomsula just feels like the greatest avatar for being a team of like lovable losers, where he just like rolls into the game room with like a fucking clothes that he got out of the trash can, like, eating some leftovers or something. He feels like the perfect slovenly guy to lead a team that's probably not going to win, but you're like, if we get 5 wins this year, it'll be a moral victory.
It's also a very funny example of like, you don't date your ex, where they do the same thing with coaches, where they go from like Mike Singletary, who just wanted to be like super hard ass, to like, hey, maybe we need someone who's a little more of a player's coach. And then Tom Sewell was like, I don't know. Yeah, go stretch a little bit and then just relax and then we'll win the game.
I was a fan of Jim Tomsula because he's from Western PA and one of the more high profile people in media to kind of have a Pittsburgh accent. You don't really hear the Pittsburgh accent publicly. Mike McCarthy, the coach,
I was going to say
he kind of has one too. But Jim Tomsula just looks very Western PA and sounds very Western PA. So, it just reminded me of every like coach who used to yell at me when I used to ref hockey games in the 2000s. Yeah.
I mean, Alex Smith was interesting because I feel like he's very beloved. Like he's just a naturally likable person. Like you wanted him to succeed, but like it never felt like he was going to, or always felt like maybe he was right on the cusp of it. Like I don't remember having any assumptions that he was going to work out, but like I remember wanting him to do well. He seemed lovable in some way.
I remember there was an interview with Aaron Rodgers years later where he said, I don't know if this has ever been fully corroborated, but he claimed that Mike Nolan, who was the coach of the Niners at the time, who drafted Alex Smith, said that Alex Smith showed up with his mom to like their draft meeting, and he saw him like get out of the car and open the door for his mom and said, that's when I knew I had my quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers.
Do those fucking stories ever end up like working out? Never. You always remember, I still can't believe this is real when Jimmy Haslam was like, yeah, I saw this homeless guy. And he's like, you got to take Johnny Manziel.
Was it like mystical Bagger Vance? Like, did the guy have special powers, or was it just some guy?
Like a magical
if it's just some
guy,
maybe you trust your scouts. Yeah. Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers, his point, he was like, I just showed, I was having lunch with them by myself. I didn't open the car door for anyone. Like, how did, he wasn't like opening the door more than me or something. Of course, now we know.
I mean,
Aaron Rodgers is kind of estranged from his family. So, but
I do kind of see where, I think now it's a lot more obvious to see that, like maybe even though he wasn't the Aaron Rodgers we all know and hate now, probably, like, never been like the most outgoing, friendly guy that people are like, you just kind of like this guy. And like, I didn't know Alex super well, but I played against him in college and we spoke every once in a while, and, he's just a solid guy. Right. So I can see, I wouldn't doubt that a big part of Rodgers falling as far as he did is just people kind of hanging out with him and being like, yeah, this guy doesn't seem like a great hang. I don't know if I want to draft him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like now there's more a recognition that people that are great at sports aren't necessarily going to be like the coolest person to hang out with. Like, do you think Michael Jordan was like opening the door for his mom? Like, no, he was like
slamming it shut harder.
Yeah. He was like betting.
Like, what? Why are you doing that?
He was like betting.
You can't open a door for yourself. You don't deserve to go through it.
Yeah. He's like,
which I think
he spent the next 8 weeks opening the door extra well out of spite. He's like, look how good I am at opening doors. Yeah. So you're like, all right, we weren't questioning your.
I was up at 4 a.m. opening doors.
But I also think that is something with Montana that maybe like poisons what your conception of a great athlete is, because totally. I feel like Montana is one of the last like great transcendent athletes who seemed like a fairly chill, good guy, like someone who was generally likable, where I feel like guys like Jordan are probably more the norm, where like, they have this sort of all-consuming competitive drive that maybe makes them a bit of a nightmare to be around.
Mm-hmm. So,
look at Tom Brady. Like, no one can knock Tom Brady like on the football field. Obviously, he was incredible, and then he talks, and it's like this guy is a weird robot. Like,
yeah,
and I think
a lot of athletes probably are weird robots.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, just go back. Brendan, where did you play at college?
I played at San Diego State. So I played against him when he was at Utah.
Yeah. Awesome. Did you see him open the car door for his mom ever?
No, I didn't see that. I was too busy icing up after getting our fucking asses kicked.
Oh, okay. You saw his mom saying, help, he won't open the door. And him like, I got a game,
I don't know
Mom.
how this
and you're
works.
like, I got to tell the coach so he doesn't take him. So you were on the Niners the year Alex Smith was the quarterback in preseason that year?
It was his rookie year.
Okay.
So, it wasn't totally clear who was going to start. I think officially he wasn't the starter until later. So it was kind of like, I think it was going to be Tim Rattay was sort of the person that they thought was going to be the starter and kind of bring Alex along a little more slowly. So he's not just kind of tossed in the deep end, which happened anyway, but
yeah,
all good. But yeah, and I think I'm also, kind of lucky as a Niners fan because I did need time after I got cut to separate and to not be involved. And so I didn't watch much football that year. And
good timing.
As a Niners fan, it's incredibly good timing. Yes. Yeah. So like basically the Nolan years, I don't have too much of a memory of, which again, nice problem to have. And then I think I kind of got over myself in time to be there for the Singletary years, which were just wonderful.
It's funny you mentioned Mike Nolan's suits, because when I was going back through this and I was like, I don't remember much about this period other than Alex Smith is post Jeff Garcia. But it's like, I remember Mike Nolan wearing a suit on the sidelines as like a tribute to, I guess, is his father, or like the history of the game, and every broadcast them being like, classy guy.
Yeah, we loved it.
He's got so much class.
Announcers
classy,
loved
class. And then it's just like, oh, he got fired because they sucked for like 3 years.
Yeah. Well, he was also, his dad not only wore the suit, but his dad wore the suit when he was coaching the Niners. Yeah. Which is totally one of those things that announcers love, because they don't have to do any research about. They don't have to be like, oh, like the team does well, when they're in this personnel grouping and these formations and, or any kind of like research. Yeah. They're just like, well, this guy's dad was the coach of this team too?
Future quarterbacks coming to interview with them all wearing suits and making sure to open the doors for everyone.
Yeah. They didn't employ proper announcers besides John Madden until 2014. Yeah. It was all basically just like bad clones of Huell Hauser until then. It was like, oh, did you know that this guy, he likes to make soup? It was really bad. I mean, for a long time, there was games that were unwatchable, not because of the product on the field, but because of who was talking about it.
So after this long kind of dark period, the 49ers, I really forgot how good they have been for the last, 15 years. I remember they made a couple Super Bowls, but they've been competitive other than maybe 3 or 4 seasons. I think the Tom Sula return, they've been really good from the 2010s on, but kind of have entered now a different type of fan frustration. They've made and lost 3 Super Bowls in the last 15 years.
Yeah, I think they've become the Bills. I think I don't know the exact stat. I think I was reading it at some point, but I feel like since 2010 we have more playoff wins than any other team, like quite a few more, and are the only team of that group that hasn't won a Super Bowl, that has won 10 or 15 playoff games since then.
Yeah.
Well, they've all come down to the last possession too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All 3 have come down to the last possession, so it's been especially heartbreaking.
Yeah, so they the 2012 they lose to the Ravens, and then 2019 and 2023 people probably remember they lose to the Chiefs.
I think before the Ravens, I feel like there's a key point, and this is one of the standout points of being a 49er fan, was I think the Kyle Williams muffed punt game, which I think was 2011. I think it was NFC Championship, and it was maybe the last.
It was the year prior to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
against the Ravens.
Yeah, take us through what happened that year.
Yeah, I remember the year being we didn't expect to be good, and then they were in the playoffs, and it was oh man, we're gonna win this game. I think they were coming down to the wire against the Giants, and Kyle Williams had already muffed 1 punt that game, and it was the last possession in the fourth quarter, and he muffed another punt, and the Giants recovered and then just kicked a field goal and won the game. And that was probably the biggest heartbreak that I can remember as a sports fan, probably.
Yeah, I mean, they were 13-3. That was a really good year, and fuck yeah, that was a heartbreaker, man. That was not fun. That sucked.
And that was the year
what was the question?
The Giants went on to beat the Patriots that year, right?
The Patriots, yeah, that was the big. No. Well, oh yeah, number 2, the second time.
That was right. Yeah, that wasn't the helmet catch year, but it was the year they won. Yeah,
they went.
I definitely remember hating. It
was the Manningham catch.
I remember hating Eli Manning in that period because Alex Smith had this thing where he would look great, but he would just manage to get sacked always. Whereas I felt like watching Eli Manning where he's always got his mouth open. He looks like a kid who just got pantsed on the playground, but he just had this weird sixth sense for he was the anti Alex Smith, where he just would not get sacked even when it looked like he was running for his life, and he would just pull some stuff out of his ass, and they would always beat us.
It's easy to remember the helmet catch because it was just insane, but you forget how the fuck did he not get sacked on that play? It was insane. Yeah. Insane.
And that was a great year for me, just because that was one of the first years where I lived in New York, and I was at a big Super Bowl party watching. Yeah, well, I just remember no one expecting the Giants to having any chance, and then They won that
Right.
Super Bowl.
That was both times. Yeah.
Yeah, and they won that Super Bowl.
It's easy to get confused. Both
And
of them,
I remember-
they were
Oh,
supposed
you're
to have no
right. It was
chance.
07.
I remember walking outside and hearing like sirens. And I was like, "Oh damn, this is like a car accident or something." And then the ambulance drove by, and it was just like the EMTs were like blasting the sirens and being like, "Yeah, go Giants!"
Hopefully, no one had an emergency that night. But
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Really good for them, you know.
If you had asked me before we did this, I would say like, man, it sucked. We won all those games with Harbaugh and like we could never get over the hump. But honestly, when I think about it now, those teams were so fun to watch. We were so good. And yeah, of course you want to win the Super Bowl, but like, God, I mean, how many teams out there are just like, they can't get out of their own fucking way, like in any way at all, right? And they've just been mediocre to shitty for years and years and years, right?
Sure.
And so,
Yeah,
like,
tons of them.
I mean, God, it was so fun, like just watching the way we would steamroll people with those Harbaugh teams, especially like the way we did it, the way we ran the ball on those teams. I mean, that was fucking fun.
I definitely
it was a lot
remember
of fun watching Frank Gore just run people over.
Yeah.
I definitely remember like Harbaugh coming in, and like everybody thought it was a good thing, but it was sort of like, okay, he's gonna have to have a few years where we're bad, and then we might be good. And then they were like good right away, and then I forget how many years he was there, and they were pretty good like that whole time, and then it just went away. It just went away. It was like, okay, he brought them back from being a bad team to being a good team, and then just sort of like left abruptly.
So I don't even necessarily know the full story of what happened, but like the legend is that like apparently Jed York was like, "Hey, I really think you're getting a lot of credit for this, and I should be getting more credit." And then like Harbaugh was just like, "Shut the fuck up, man! Like, stop being such a bitch." And he's like, "Oh, I don't like you anymore. You're gone."
Mm-hmm. Jed York, the president of the team.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know who Jed York is or much about him, so maybe he's right. Maybe he's got a point. Maybe he should be more credit. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't. Yeah, you got me.
Yeah, so they lose in 2012 to the Harbaugh Bowl. That's the Super Bowl where the lights go out for a while, and then the Ravens come back and win that. And then 2019, 2023, both times they lose to the Mahomes Chiefs. What stands out to you about those games? Did you think going in, they had a shot? How did you feel, and how did you come away from them?
It's weird because I still think of the 49ers as like, or at the time I sort of thought of them as like an overachieving team. Like I didn't have like super high expectations. And then it was like my expectations slowly built like, okay, maybe they are for real. And then it was just sort of like snatched away. And like 2020, like the most recent one, especially, it was like, oh God, I've seen this movie before. Like, don't give Mahomes the fucking ball back. And then they just did. And so, yeah, they've gone from being like a team that couldn't do anything right to this team that's always perennially really good, but like can't close the deal. And I think that's sort of become Kyle Shanahan's like curse and like the legend of being the guy that like is this genius that can't close the deal, I guess.
Do you think you'll see another 49er Super Bowl win soon, or you have no idea?
I have no idea. Like, yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, obviously, like we have a very talented roster right now. I think the optimist case is if you have the quarterback, you're never totally out, like,
sure.
That's the most important thing. And, I think he's a really good quarterback. And there's also a lot of the Brock discourse is pretty obnoxious. But, at this point, it's kind of like he hasn't faked it. Like everyone always wants to keep saying, well, he's just like a Shanahan quarterback. And it's like, well, why don't they just fucking do that for everybody? Why doesn't everybody just run that offense then? You know what I mean?
No,
it's not some secret mojo that like no one can like understand. Everyone has film of everyone. Coaches spend hours and hours and hours looking at what everyone else is doing. So if there was some easy button for quarterbacks, like, I don't know. I just hate that argument so much. And if you talk to anybody who actually knows football, like they're like, yes, this guy's really good. He makes really good decisions and that's it. And I think a lot of people have a hard time kind of computing because he's not a Lamar Jackson who can just outrun everybody on the field or anything like that. Like he just makes really good decisions. And so when you have that, you've always got kind of the puncher's chance, if you will. But I think the rest of the league is definitely kind of catching up. And I don't know.
Purdy's sort of a conundrum because, like, with Jimmy Garoppolo, I feel like we all sort of knew, like, when it came down to crunch time that he was going to screw it up, and like he didn't throw a good deep ball ever. Like, they always looked kind of bad, but every once in a while, like, guys would be just so wide open that they would win games. And like Brock Purdy's clearly better than that, but it's, I don't know. It's like Brendan said, it's this constant discourse where it's like, oh, is he really good or is he a fraud? And it's kind of like, I don't know. Seems like he's somewhere in between those two things. And I don't know how it plays out.
I don't know. I feel like you can really see Brock run the offense, make good decisions. If we don't get back to the Super Bowl, I don't think it's going to be because of him. I think it's because they aren't able to manage and or replace the pieces around him.
Also, even if you think he's like good, but not one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, you can't just like go get an elite quarterback. It's not, like, no, let's just get Lamar Jackson. It's like, you can't do that. Yeah. It's like, you got to make do with what you have. It's not like you toss him to the curb and get someone automatically better. So yeah, I kind of agree with you guys there.
Yeah. I mean, the way it works is it's a cheat code in the NFL. If you've got an elite quarterback on a rookie contract, right? So
yeah, for sure.
So once it's like so these quarterbacks have like their window of 3 years or probably more likely 4 years because they're a first round draft pick. And then the decision is made on them. They're either going to be like, you either know that they're really good or not. And if they're really good, they are not leaving that fucking team. Like the ownership is not going to let them leave that team. Right. So yeah, it's not like, oh, hey, like one of the best quarterbacks of all time is just happens to be open in the free agent market. Like that's never going to happen. Right. So you're not going to luck into someone in the market like that. Right.
Yeah.
You have to luck into them as the last overall draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely made him.
The Steelers took a quarterback in the first round to rub it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he definitely had the formula to becoming a fan favorite. Like, everybody's going to want to see like the last guy chosen in the draft like do well. Like that's and then but then of course now it's like, oh, is he like a top 10? Is he this? Is that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, welcome to Flacco discourse or whatever. All those teams that have that. So looking back at your fandom, how has your fandom changed over the years? Because, I feel like your fan base, the 49ers, it's just so odd to like simultaneously be like, we experienced a greater period of glory than almost any team will ever achieve in their lives. But also you're getting on 30 plus years without a Super Bowl win. How do you reconcile those things to be like, we are simultaneously this blessed fan base and also kind of like, it's been a little rough for long enough that now it doesn't feel bad that you're complaining about it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the general arc going from like spoiled to hard luck to now it's like this, like I said, like Buffalo Bills where it's like, we're sort of good, but it's more heartbreaking because it just feels like we grown up thinking like it was going to be easy and that they're always going to have like this horseshoe up their ass, like when it comes to Super Bowls. And now it's completely turned the opposite direction to where, like part of me always feels bad that I got my kids into this, but I mean, is it better than like being a Browns fan? Absolutely.
Yeah, like no one's going to bring up the 49ers as like a tortured fan base.
Yeah.
But it's also like, how far does a team have to be from their, quote unquote glory period before they can kind of be a tortured fan base again, or like start to complain and not have everyone be like, shut up, you're a Chiefs fan or you're a Patriots fan. Like, are you far enough away now that you can complain and other fan bases don't give you shit? Like,
I mean, for people our age, at least, I feel like most of the people that I grew up around that aren't 49ers fans will always just like hate the 49ers with the passion of 1,000 suns because they grew up just like getting dunked on, and that like never goes away where you grow up watching the 49ers destroy you. I mean, probably for the same reason that I will always hate the Cowboys. I mean, I have other reasons for hating the Cowboys, but I definitely think like, that the idea of that one franchise as like the enemy sticks with you. I don't think being a 49ers fan is ever going to be no one's rooting. No one who's not a 49er fan like cares what the 49ers do. Like they're like, it's not like for us, if the Browns or like the Bills or some other sort of traditionally like snake bitten franchise like does well, like part of me is, good for them. No one's saying like, oh, good for the 49ers.
Yeah, definitely. Brendan, do you think you're as big of a fan now as you were when you were younger?
Yeah, I still think so. I kind of like put the like player part behind me a long time ago, and I can just sort of be a fan. So I don't even really necessarily think about, I'm certainly not going like, man, this is the team that I bled and sweated for, none of that bullshit. It's just like I had my little fling and it was cool and got to kind of check it off the box, and it didn't work out. I didn't get the 10-year, Pro Bowler career, but that's okay. And, I can just enjoy them and not have that other kind of baggage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I also feel like there's a thing where we're never going to be like the lovable, like hometown blue collar team. Like they're playing in Santa Clara in this sort of fucking eyesore that like the tech industry built. And that's very easy to hate. Like even for us, I think like it's not a stadium that you go to and it feels like you're part of this like tight knit group of fans. It's like it has like all the charm of a strip mall in some ways, and with the added like downside of it being in Silicon Valley. So it's not inherently likable, and we're grandfathered in because we have grown up, rooting for this team. But I don't think it's like, it doesn't feel like in the 80s, like people that lived in England and Australia like didn't know anything about football, but they're like, oh, this Joe Montana guy seems kind of cool. And I'm sure we have a lot of like overseas fans from that era, and like this team is not going to have that effect.
I mean, I remember people would kind of rip on when the Warriors had that run of just like, oh, these freaking, 25-year-old tech bros suddenly caring about basketball. Like, is that overblown, or is that kind of baked into the 49ers fandom too?
Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of like the dichotomy of the Bay Area, I think. Because when the Warriors first started winning, it was like they were still in Oakland, and they were still a sense of like the people that had grown up watching, being diehard Warriors fans. But then, like everything with the Bay Area, like the tech coming to the Bay Area made it a lot more hateable just in general. And, like they went from being like a lovable Oakland team to being like they have this really expensive arena in San Francisco on the waterfront that like all the tech people are buying up the expensive seats. So yeah, it's a weird mix.
Are the 49ers like that too? Or is it more of like the working class fans have been going their whole lives kind of all get together? Or is it really kind of priced out rich thing now?
I don't know. I mean, my sense is that like the tech people haven't adopted the 49ers in the way that they maybe did the Warriors. And I don't know if that is inaccurate or if that's just like the difference between football and basketball. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I definitely think that there's an element of the 49ers there is like the rich side of the fan base, but I feel like the franchise is older in a way that like it skews more like there are a lot more blue collar 49ers fans, it seems like.
Brendan was talking earlier about treating your workers like cattle. I feel like the tech people would learn how NFL franchises treat their players. They'll be like, hey, all right.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Shanahan does sort of have that, he has that sort of Kendall Roy quality, or that, or I don't know, he's not quite like the big data guy, but he seems like he could sort of skew that way.
Dad, lost another Super Bowl to Pat Mahomes. You fucking bastard. Yeah. So, I don't know. Thanks for setting me up to do my perfect Kendall Roy impression there.
Well, I was enjoying the Brian Cox, but.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That one was a little less bad, but yeah, Brendan, anything else you wanted to any funny in-game experiences or funny experiences you had in training camp?
I tried to just enjoy the whole thing while I was there. I don't know if there's any like really, really good stories that I recall, but it was just cool. Like
by Alex Smith.
Yeah, no, I didn't get hazed. Usually when teams suck, they don't allow you to haze. And they had been pretty bad. So, lots of fond memories and being pretty cool that, when I was a kid, I was like, man, I'm going to run out of that big inflatable helmet one day. And like, I actually got to do it. And like, it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. That's so cool.
But in the long run, yeah, like you can't complain. I mean, obviously, like the last 3 Super Bowl losses have just been really fucking painful. Mm-hmm. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I don't know, I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, nice. I will have to say, I feel like you're maybe the most well-adjusted fans I've interviewed on this podcast so far. I mean, I guess it takes 5 Super Bowls to not be just totally miserable about sports.
I think it does give you a certain kind of perspective where, we grew up with Montana, who was, the acknowledged hero and like main character of football at that time.
Yeah.
And
sure.
like now to grow up and be on the other side of it, where we're constantly getting beat by Patrick Mahomes. Like Patrick Mahomes just has that sort of air of like invincibility and superstardom about him. And it's sort of like, it's depressing, but it's also like expected and like, okay, yeah, this is what it's like. Okay. Now I understand what everybody who was on the other side of that must have felt like.
Yeah. I guarantee there's Chiefs fans that are a lot saltier than us about having lost the Eagles. And then the Bucks a couple years ago as well, and like, yeah, it sucks, man.
One friend of mine was a Chiefs fan, and I followed him on Twitter and would tweet during the games, just like, when are we going to fire the defensive coordinator? How is this safety still on the team? Like the maddest, like normal mad fan shit. And I'm just like, dude, you've won like 10 Super Bowl. Like, how are you as a current Chiefs fan, like still this mad? Like no perspective shift whatsoever, but that's sports. It's just,
I definitely felt that in the Super Bowl where I was like, please don't give him the ball back. Oh no, they're giving him the ball. You're like, just do anything but that. And then they were just they did it twice. Like, okay.
One of those dreams where you like trying to do something simple and you like can't do it. You're just like, no, why? I'm giving him the ball. I like can't stop myself from doing it. Yeah. That's our show. Thanks so much to Vince and Brendan for joining to talk about the 49ers dynasty and subsequent non-dynasty. If you like the show, please leave an iTunes review or just tell some people about it. We'll be back next Tuesday with an all-new episode. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.